Hello, Young Justice fans. Anchorpete here, and I'm with my good friend, Mr. Brian, coarse hair. Brian, what's on your shirt tonight?
Oh, I have a Grimlock. Wait, how do I? Anyway, there we go. It's Grimlock Jurassic Park hoodie.
Very
I like this way. It's hoodie weather down here in cold New Jersey.
What's the temperature like?
It's getting to like the 50s. So yeah.
It's actually pretty cold in Texas right now too. Halloween was warm though. It was kind of balmy. I don't know. Did you see my costume by any chance?
I did, but I didn't know what it was.
No one knew what it was. It was there's a comic by James Tinian the fourth.
Okay.
It's called Something is Killing the Children. And there's a spin-off called House of Slaughter. And so I was like a character from House of Slaughter.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was a deep cut. My wife and my kids said to me that like if anyone else recognized my costume, they would give me like $30, but no one did.
Yeah. The best was I ever since I stopped throwing Halloween parties, I have not really done much in the ways of costumes. But my wife, Kristen, and I went as Rick and Morty, and she was Rick and I was Morty. And most people didn't pick up on it. Like they either didn't know what it was or didn't pick up on, because I was just a guy in a yellow shirt and blue pants and jeans, which I don't normally wear jeans. But my favorite part of the night is we were at a party and we were walking through a room, and someone said to Kristen, "Oh, I love your costume," and then just completely ignored me. Like, I mean, granted, it wasn't a costume really. Like, it was just clothes, but it's like it was just a weird like moment.
Well, I don't get it. Like, isn't Rick and Morty like super popular?
I guess in this crowd it wasn't.
People weren't making the connection. That's weird.
Yeah.
Like with Rick and Morty's like up to what, like season 5, season 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I actually been like watching a lot of YouTube videos with like Dan Harmon and stuff, and it's making me miss the show.
Yeah.
And it's making me want to watch Community too. But like just in general, I thought that like Rick and Morty was like a big thing. I thought people would recognize you.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, that just goes to show you, like, when you try really hard to make something really cool and clever, not that mine was clever, but
yeah,
chances are, unless you're doing something really, 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 really obvious, no one's gonna know what it is. The best was we didn't do anything last year because of the COVID, but the year before that, my son was Captain America, and it was like the Winter Soldier like style costume.
Yeah.
Kristen put together a Winter Soldier, and I was a Shield agent, but everyone just thought I was like Men in Black. Like 5 or 6 people. I had an ID card that said Shield agent, but everyone like 5 or 6 people was like, "Oh, are you Men in Black?" I'm like, "No."
At this point, I think like we're not even following the YouTube rules of like you should announce what you're gonna talk about or anything like that. We're just chatting like friends.
Yeah,
this is like a typical podcast. That's fine. Like it's live. Who gives a shit, right? And I'll tell you a Halloween story real quick then too. Your story reminds me of it. A couple of years ago, I drove Uber a few times, just a handful of times, and I decided to drive on Halloween night for Uber in Austin, and it was very busy. A lot of people going to parties, a lot of young people. And I dressed up like Walter White from Breaking Bad. And I was in one of those like hazmat suits with the goggles and stuff. And I remember I picked up these young girls that were going to a party, and they just kept taking selfies like the whole time, right? And like they were so cool. They took like 50 selfies. And then one of the girls was talking to the girl in the back. She's like, "Oh, I just told my friends that we're being driven around by a minion." They thought I was a minion, So
did you have like blue rock candy with you or something like that? Like that would have been...
I think I even did have fucking blue rock candy. I really did, but they thought I was from the movie Minions, like Despicable Me. The guy was like, they didn't know our Uber driver's a minion. So
there's no point in putting effort into anything. It just proves it.
Yeah. Why put effort into life? Why put effort into this fucking podcast? Who gives a shit? Anyway, I am Anchorpete. And Brian and I have been talking about Young Justice, which is one of our favorite shows. On this channel, we cover basically things that have been adapted, transformed from comic books. And Young Justice is probably one of the best examples of how to do it right. So, Brian, we are up to episode 4, Involuntary, and it looks like the Mars storyline might be coming to a close. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think this was a pretty major turning point, and I think it was a needed turning point because I don't know how many more episodes they could have taken of this Mars arc because there's so many. Like, I'm trying to take notes, and I just can't because I just can't follow any of the names whatsoever.
Right. I actually tried to do a little research because I watched this maybe 2 days ago, and I couldn't remember all the Martian names, but I wrote down the Martian names on here, like Ja'em. That's the prince.
That's
of
the prince,
Mars.
yeah.
Okay, and then Macam. That's like McGann's brother, right?
Yeah, but
He's
he
the one
goes
that
by that other name. I know we commented on it last week, but I can't even remember it.
Yeah, well, their name, it's like the name after like a Martian wolf that Beast Boy became last week. And the second name sounds like fuck. It's like Fahak, you know? Masa Fahak, something like that. Yeah. But anyway, I feel like there wasn't a lot that happened in this episode, but there was a very big moment, right?
Well, I mean, there actually was. Like they kind of closed in on the whole mystery of who killed the previous Martian king, Jam's father, and at the same time kind of got to the bottom of the whole, cult thing. Maybe not the whole cult thing yet, but it actually was a pretty informative and fast paced episode, and then the end was really just stood out so much that it kind of overshadowed everything else. But
yes.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this stuff, it's like spoiler central. So we're going to spoil episode 4. We are going to get to that big ending in a minute. But there was one thing I wanted to talk about. And for those of you that are like, well, what the heck are they going to talk about afterwards? They're going to talk about Halloween costumes some more. No, we're going to talk about Morbius and the trailer that just came out too. So I got a lot to say about that. Anyway, the guy that's watching the scene. So essentially there's like 2 groups watching what's going on Mars, right? There's the Legion of Superheroes, and then there's like this Watcher that's in a bubble, right? And that is the young Watcher character, or not Watcher, that's from Marvel. The young Monitor from Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, right?
When did that happen?
Dude, there's this guy that's in this like golden globe. It's like floating around, and he observes what's happening. He's like African American, or not African American. He's like from another planet. He's like a black guy with dreads, right?
Okay.
And he kind of smirked at one point in this last episode when he saw Beast Boy doing something. Do you remember?
Okay, yes.
So in Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, I'm pretty sure this is that character because I mean he's observing like a Monitor would, and he looks like him. But it's basically like a young guy that like worked at a fast food restaurant. And it turns out he's like one of the Monitor race. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
All right.
I definitely read Final Crisis, but I mean, Grant Morrison things are always a lot to take in. But no, I don't remember that character at all from the book.
But you remember him from the show, right?
Yes, I definitely seen him, but I guess I just wasn't. I guess I just didn't pay attention to it. Maybe, like I said, that ending kind of overshadowed everything for me.
Okay, well, I just looked him up, and his name is Dax Novu, right?
Okay.
And basically, after Infinite Crisis, all of a sudden there was a bunch of Monitors again. And Dax Novu is like this young Monitor. I wish I could like show you a picture while we're talking. But last week, you and I talked about, well, what are they going to do? Because they've already shown Darkseid. Like, how do you go bigger than Darkseid and the anti-life equation? And I'm guessing this is what they're going to do, which is they're going to do like the multiverse and Infinite Crisis.
Yeah, bring the monitors into this would definitely be above Darkseid, above that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: did you get a chance to look at the Reddit that you shared with me?
Yes. Yeah, I read a decent amount of it. It was from yesterday. It was an Ask Me Anything with Weissman and Verlanti, and there's nothing spoilery. It's more about how the show is made, fans thanking them for doing such a great job, and where they got inspiration from various things. How they felt about using various characters like Rocket and things like that. So there's not much to really contribute future plot wise from that conversation, but it was interesting to read anyway.
Well, one thing that I took from it, I didn't read the whole thread either, but one thing I took from it was that they actually had this like mapped out to do 5 seasons. And then they said that they like write everything out on index cards, and there's, they sort of go off that. So they might kind of change the storyline after they've written on these index cards. But to me, it's like maybe they're leading towards Final Crisis. Like maybe this stuff is kind of leading towards the Earth 16 version of Final Crisis.
Yeah, it's also important to note that they had 5 seasons worth of stuff around this time of season 1 and 2. So that number could have changed since since the cancellation and renewal. And somebody in that thread pointed out that like this month is like the 5th anniversary of the announcement of the renewal of season 3.
Okay.
So it's like this show's been on for 10 years. I think we've commented on that before.
We did. It's crazy, man. Like they said that like this show was like the second most streamed thing on HBO Max last week. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what was the first. Probably Dune, right?
Big blockbuster movie, probably.
Yeah. Okay, well, then why don't we talk about like what actually happens in this episode? So we find out who killed the king, and it looks like it was because of Martian magic, right?
Yes. Which again, I'm really glad that they're fleshing out this culture. I don't really remember much about Martian magic from comic books.
No. It's like we said last week, it's always been the white Martians, the green Martians. The white ones are real scary and violent. The green ones are peaceful, and they're all dead. So this is like totally new world. Yeah. So,
essentially, the magic was involved. The priest that was going to marry McGann and Connor went to go. They flat out told you that her and Jem were kind of like a thing, and because she wasn't of royal blood, they couldn't be together, and she went to kind of go beg the king, and then lost control of her powers, and the king died. I feel like it was a little out of left field for that answer, and I think the reason why is probably because someone or something unbeknownst to her triggered that. I think something was placed there, or somebody did something to trigger her powers to overload and do that, and it's not as much as the accident as it seems to have been.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because like, there is the behind the scenes kind of stuff, right? Because that bomb that the terrorist group gets is from Apocalypse, right? It's from Desaad. And so it's like, why does Apocalypse want to wipe out Martians? Are like the Martians that big of a threat that they like that somebody like Darkseid wants to get rid of them? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we don't even know it's necessarily Darkseid doing because we've only seen Desaad. So
okay, that's a very good point.
So I don't know if it's just some random transaction between bad guys or if there's some greater plot. Like you mentioned before, if that was, if we're seeing Dax Novu and the monitors and the anti-monitor and all that stuff's going to be a bigger part of this, I don't even necessarily know how that would fit in.
Yeah. Well, when we get to Darkseid and when we get to this like Final Crisis stuff, there's a few different routes they can take, right? Like they can do Final Crisis where it's the Grant Morrison Final Crisis, and Darkseid basically has the anti-life equation, and he takes over the world and essentially the whole universe, and it's just this like super big apocalyptic thing. I can see them doing that, especially with HBO Max. Another thing is they could do this Jeff Johns storyline where it's Darkseid versus the Monitor. Yeah, no, the Anti-Monitor. It was called Darkseid War, and it's like the Anti-Monitor versus Darkseid, and then I think Darkseid gets killed. He eventually becomes a baby. There's a lot of weird, convoluted DC shit,
Yeah.
So that's another route they could take. And knowing the show, it's probably like they'll take components from each of those and kind of meld them together into something.
Yes. with their own little.
I know. Yeah. And like last week we talked about it too, but they showed Clarion the Witch Boy. So like I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of magic stuff too down the road.
Yeah, especially with Zatanna featured in the intro. There's gonna be some magic components here. I mean, we've already seen magic with, you know, the yellow Martian girl and her magic and the magic scent or whatever it is that Superboy notices.
Yes. Probably smells like popcorn. She kind of looks like popcorn. Oh, it smells like magic. Yeah. But I really like that. I like that like she changed her skin pigment to be like a priest color too. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Nice little detail. The show has like so many cool details that they just throw in to really make its own mythology. It's really
it's just really good world building. Like we talked about that before, and it's just details like that and fleshing all this stuff out is why the show is so good.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about like if there is a bigger picture with Darkseid, like what would killing spoiler, killing Superboy have to do with that?
Okay, so the other aspect of this we didn't mention it is the Legion. We still don't know exactly why the Legion is there, but I noticed that they at one point McGann does something and blocks psychic connections, and then was it Saturn Girl says, "I can't find him." So I'm kind of thinking they're there to stop Superboy from dying.
Okay. Now, do you think that Superboy maybe didn't die and that like that body that you see in the lava is like something that they put there and they brought him to like the future or something?
So what you saw, I believe they said it was a silhouette of like ash from the explosion. So maybe I am thinking something like that happened because I don't think he's actually dead.
Okay.
I don't really have a good reason why, other than that little moment of the Legion saying that, and you don't see the Legion again,
right
at that point. So I have a feeling that something happened with them. That was their goal to save him somehow, and then he plays some important role with whatever's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right, and the Legion is known for like taking either like Superboy or Supergirl, and it could be like the Jonathan Kent Superboy. It's the Connor Superboy, it's the Clark Kent Superboy, and bringing them to the future. So I think it's totally reasonable.
Has the Connor Kent Superboy ever been involved with the Legion before? I don't remember that.
Yeah, because when Bendis came over to DC, he was writing Legion of Superheroes, and he took. Oh, you said Connor?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I might be wrong. I thought that maybe they took Connor too, but I might be wrong.
But still, that's an interesting twist. I mean, we know that a younger super character has interactions with the Legion and time travel or whatever DC wants to call it. So it would be in their wheelhouse to take a different version of Superman and put him in that position.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there's all weird things you can spin out of that. And the kind of conversation we're having is like so dense that I think that like if any of our regular friends watch this stuff, they'd be like, what the hell are they talking about? Right?
Well, but I mean, like, really, we're talking about them referencing Grant Morrison stuff, which is super, super dense.
Yeah, and weird, right? But like one other weird thing, if we're going to talk about the Legion too, is that there's all different versions of Superman. I mean, you know this. I'm just saying this to people who are watching. But one of them is Superboy Prime. And Superboy Prime is like this. He was like a Superman from a planet where it was just regular Earth, like our Earth, but he happened to be Superman. And it was like, what's going on here? And he knew all about the DC comics as like the comics themselves, as you know, as he could like read them. And he ends up going crazy in Infinite Crisis and fighting all the other superheroes. And in this one storyline for Final Crisis, in the future, Superboy Prime becomes this guy called like the Time Trapper. And like maybe this has something to do with that too. Does that sound familiar to anything you've ever read?
I think so, yeah.
I saw a YouTube video where someone showed a picture of Connor from the show, and then they showed a picture of the Time Trapper, and they were like, "Oh, is this connected?" Like, so maybe after the show, if you want to like Google it just to see what the hell I'm talking
Yeah,
about too.
definitely will.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's talk about the actual like fun kind of crazy oh shit moment. So friggin' Superboy blew up.
Yes.
How'd you feel in that moment?
Well, it didn't really dawn on me that I did think he was dead at first. I absolutely did, because the show has killed characters off before. I mean, Wally is the prime example, who is still dead. So I did believe it at first until I actually rewatched the show more recently, because I watched it like last Thursday for this. So, but yeah, it was like a perfect storm of him being led there to do that. So it was a bomb from Apocalypse that had a virus that was going to eradicate the Green Martian specifically, and then somehow it was also laced with kryptonite. So and he didn't notice that. So he broke through that throne room and dropped it in the lava, and then freed the virus, and then afterwards you find out when Superman shows up that he's weak, and then there's kryptonite in the bomb as well. So they really drove it home that, in addition with the silhouette as well, that there's no way he's out of there, which is why it makes you think there's some way he's out of there.
Right.
Like they drove home a little bit too much.
Yeah. Okay, well, I definitely don't want him to die, because he is one of my favorite characters in that show, hands down.
Yeah, definitely.
I will watch him have thought conversations with people every episode and not move his mouth. And him and Miss Martian.
This episode, everyone was talking with their mouths this episode. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I saw.
Maybe
yeah.
I'm wrong. Well, there was less telepathic talk in this episode than any of the others so far.
Yeah. You know what we should do, just to be kind of freaky, is we should record our audio talking and then record video of us just being like, oh man, that would make the views.
All we have to do is redo this and just sit here and just make faces at each other for the exact amount of time we were talking, and then it'll be fine.
Perfect. We definitely have the time to do that with our little kids and stuff. Okay. So anyway, I was gonna say that the very end scene too was really sad of Miss Martian.
Oh God, yeah, that is like, Dragon. Oh God, yeah, that hurt. Yeah, it was depressing.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you want to add for this episode of Young Justice?
No, but I mean, I imagine next week we're I don't know if they're gonna flat out reveal that Superboy is alive or dead next week. I think we're gonna see a jump to another storyline, and then maybe he'll show up in a couple episodes, or they'll hint at it or something.
I 100% agree with you. I think he's gonna seem dead for like probably the next story arc. I think I read in that Reddit thread too that like they're doing like little arcs and focusing on specific characters from season 1 versus like a big sprawling thing with multiple characters. Yeah. So I think we'll probably have like another arc that it's like where he's dead and we're focusing on somebody else, like Zatanna or something like that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and we like to talk for a little while, let's talk about Morbius and the second trailer that came out.
Sure.
Seeing this second trailer, do you feel differently than you did after seeing the first trailer?
You know what? I didn't hate the first trailer that much, and I actually don't think this trailer was necessarily better than the first one.
Okay.
But so I mean, I guess I still feel in general the same way about it.
Which is what?
This trailer felt a little more. The first one I felt set up the movie a little bit better, and the premise of the character. This one felt a little more. They threw a little more action in it, and it wasn't as coherent to me. I think. But I mean, I'll still see the movie. I don't have a lot of faith in it,
right?
Based on, how these other Sony movies have gone, and I think a lot of how these movies will boil down to whether or not Spider-Man will have some involvement in the future.
Right. Yeah. Well, speaking of that involvement, it's like. One thing that I thought was very different from this trailer is they tried to shove in all the connections to Spider-Man lore in this trailer than they did in the first one.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's that one scene where the Vulture's there, and he's like, Morbius. And they showed Vulture in the last trailer, too. But they're showing him again.
Yeah.
There's like a new... There's
and that's probably, you know, a tenth of the, you know, the 30-second scene he'll be in the entire movie.
Exactly. And then, like, there's like a newspaper headline, and it references the Rhino and Black Cat.
Oh, I didn't notice the Black Cat mentioned, or the Rhino.
Yeah. They referenced the Black Cat in the newspaper. Then, I'm trying to think what else is referenced. There's that Spider-Man poster where it says, like, murderer over Spider-Man.
And the Venom joke.
And the Venom joke at the very end, right. So, you know, there's references to essentially, like, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies and then Venom, too. So that brings us back to our conversation that we had when we talked about Venom, which is like, do you think that the Eddie Brock Venom, that's Tom Hardy, has crossed over into the MCU at the end of Venom?
It does seem like a yes.
Okay. But then is Morbius in the MCU, and that's Vulture in the MCU? Like, that's all MCU stuff?
I guess. Yeah, I guess they're implying that Venom previously was in somewhere else, and now he's here.
Yeah.
And then this movie takes place in the same reality the MCU is in, because obviously you said Vulture was there. But then again, how would he know about Venom if he just got there, sort of, you know? Or I guess they're already have posters with Spider-Man murder, so then his secret's out.
Do you think okay, so since Spider-Man No Way Home is part Sony and part MCU, do you think that when that movie ends, it's going to be like Peter is in this world that is the Sony Spider-Man, or it's called the Sony Spider-Man universe, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so do you think that, like, Doctor Strange is going to do a spell and stuff, and there's going to be hijinks, and there's going to be all different villains from the different Spider-Man movies, but then at the very end, he's going to be in this world, and maybe they'll even do like a little montage where, like, you'll see Morbius and you'll see Venom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's really throwing me off because of Michael Keaton. Because it doesn't make sense. I mean, the combination of Michael Keaton and the Venom mention don't make sense to me, because even like I was saying, if this is post Peter Parker getting revealed to the world and everyone thinks Peter Parker murdered Mysterio, like, when does this take place? Like, how quickly could the world know about Venom? And this movie is after that. And then if Michael Keaton is still there, that means did Doctor Strange send Spider-Man and Michael Keaton, you know, to this other universe? Well, I don't think so. It's so weird how this is all has to shake out based on business dealings. You know, it's like the weirdest thing that all this narrative is based on some weird, just pact to share this character in a way, and someone wanted to make more money. You know, Sony wanted to bank more money on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like kind of what we were talking about with the DC stuff and Young Justice, and there being a crisis and things like that, or Final Crisis, because it's like, I think that when Spider-Man No Way Home ends, it's going to be like when the DC shows on the CW had their crisis, and it was like all these universes died, and then all of a sudden, look, here's Doom Patrol, and here's the Flash, and here's Supergirl. Like, they just did this little montage to show, like, all these things are connected. And I think what will happen is things are going to get real crazy by the end of No Way Home, and you're going to have like a Sinister Six type fight, and then like Doctor Strange will do something to reset everything, and Peter Parker will wake up, and it'll be like some of the things from the MCU are in this Sony universe, and that's kind of like their resolution. It's kind of like a DC Crisis thing where it's like,
man,
no, this is the status quo now.
That's some like X-Men level movie sloppiness.
Well, Sony does that though, you know?
Yeah.
And that's go ahead.
I'm so torn on this Spider-Man stuff and where it should land or whatever, because obviously, like the movies in the Marvel universe have been good, and I just like seeing Spider-Man as part of that world. He's such a huge part of Marvel for me, that to have all those Avengers characters and not have Spider-Man involved in some manner would just feels wrong. But at the same time, all the things I love about Spider-Man are really not present in any of these MCU movies. His entire cast outside of Aunt May, and and the two villains we've seen, are just not there. And I guess that's because Sony has claimed rights to them or something like that. And they've made two subpar movies so far,
Right.
and which isn't great. So, like, on one hand, I want to see the expansion of these Spider-Man specific characters, but on the other hand, I also want a good movie.
Yes. That is very, very well put, because, like, you're right. What makes Spider-Man is not in these movies. In Far From Home, he's like in Europe and he's working with Nick Fury, and that kind of shit happens in the comics, but that's the exception. That's not the norm. Yeah. The norm is like Spider-Man's with his friends, and it's like Harry Osborn and Mary Jane. I get Zendaya's Mary Jane and stuff. That kind of throws me off sometimes. But like, they just don't feel like his friends, and then it's not in that kind of context. He's like going to Washington at some point, and it should be like New York and street level stuff, and it just hasn't felt like that. It feels like
it feels like he's barely been in New York at all.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah. There's like way too much stuff with like Avengers and that, way too much Iron Man stuff. It's.
So. And that you made the point about Zendaya, and also we have Ned Leeds, although he's nothing like the Ned of the comics, and he's pretty much Genki from Ultimate Spider-Man. So it's there's some components there, but it's not all there. And while I've enjoyed the MCU movies, I mean, there are aspects that the previous series had that I wish these had, and I also get that they don't want to just rehash all that because they did it twice already.
Very good point. Yeah. Do you think that? And it's so funny because we started talking about Morbius, but really all we're doing is talking about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too about Morbius also is that how different really is this from Venom? Maybe it'd be a little less goofy, like a little more on the serious side, or maybe a little darker or something like that. I'm getting an ad on my other window here that it was just a Morbius ad because maybe my computer's listening to me. I feel like he's an anti-hero, just like Venom is, and there's not much of a difference between these characters. And now that you mentioned I missed the headline that said mention the Rhino and a Black Cat, but like something like Black Cat might have been something I might have been more interested in seeing if they had to pick a one-off character to pull something on. Granted, she's not as famous as some of these other characters, and there obviously was a huge disaster with DC and the Catwoman movie they had, and the characters are kind of similar. But I mean, they had that rumor of a Black Cat and Silver Sable movie. Like, what happened to that? I mean, that might have been something that might have been different enough from than Morbius to do next.
I totally get you. I don't know why they decided to go with Morbius. It's weird because Morbius isn't even that big a character. Like you said, that Black Cat's not as well known, but I feel like Morbius and Black Cat. What's that?
No, you just continue.
No, like it's like, why did they choose to make this movie? And they picked Jared Leto, which, like, obviously some people like him, but with comic book fans, a lot of them have specific opinions about him. Yeah, and especially with his portrayal of the Joker. And when I see this trailer, I'm just like, who is out there saying, I want to see this? Like, get me Morbius. Like, he's always kind of worked best as a supporting character. They put him into the whole Ghost Rider mythology with the Midnight Suns, and he's always been like a supporting character to Spider-Man. But like, he hasn't really had like a.
It's funny when you were saying supporting character, you're talking about Morbius. I thought you were talking about Jared Leto because it also applies to him kind of too.
Yeah, that's true. He's never really the main guy. It's a good point. And he's always playing a weirdo, But like, And I remember, this reminds me of a conversation you and I had a long time ago, because we were talking about his band 30 Seconds to Mars, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about this one video you saw of 30 Seconds to Mars where they were acting out a scene or something. Like, it was a music video, but they were doing a scene, right? And you kind of couldn't believe how bad his acting was in this scene, considering that he was an actor. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Maybe your wife was the one that was saying it, but like, I think you were there. But like whatever the case was, it was just like, wow, he's doing a really bad job acting, even though he's an actor, you know?
Yeah.
But he's just so like hot and cold. Like, and I feel like in this movie, he just seems really goofy.
Yeah, but and this is like it's probably an unintentional goofy.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike how they made the Venom symbiote kind of goofy on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that to me is the only difference between these two movies, really.
Yeah. Well, do you think that like with Morbius and with Venom, it's like the source material itself is kind of goofy or ridiculous, and so it's very hard to make it serious? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think you could make a serious movie out of Morbius. I mean, he's a vampire. He had a disease. He's trying to get find a cure to it, and he kind of did, but it was also like a curse at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty interesting premise. I mean, it's a well known trope, I suppose. At the same time, I guess Venom is harder to do. I guess.
It's pretty out there.
But it's something people would have wanted to have seen, and I just don't think they've quite gotten it right yet.
Yeah, I think that the problem with Sony is that they're making these movies that do feel pretty dated. They feel like they're like late 90s, early 2000s comic book movies, and we're in 2021. And it's funny. There's essentially 2 points I wanted to bring up to address that too. If you look at the people that made this movie, right? The director of Morbius is Daniel Espinosa. He did that movie Life with Ryan Reynolds on the spaceship.
Nope, haven't seen it.
Okay, it's like Alien, but it's got Ryan Reynolds and.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I do know what you're talking about. Yes,
right?
But I did not see it.
So that looked like a serious. I didn't see it either. He made this movie.
Wait a minute. Isn't it the movie that's the premise almost sounded like how Venom's origin was in like the animated series?
Yes. Right. So this guy made like a Venom type movie. All right. He also made this movie called Safe House, which I did see, and it was pretty serious. It had like Denzel Washington, Ryan Reynolds was in that too, right? And Vera Farmiga. And then he made, speaking of Venom, he made a movie with Tom Hardy in it called Child 44, which was like about like Soviet Union, I think like post World War II. And Gary Oldman was in that too, right? So he's made all these serious kind of movies. So I think he could make a serious movie with Morbius. They're trying to like dial up that kind of. Oh, I freeze?
Yeah, you froze out for a second. Just repeat that last like 30 seconds.
Okay. It seems like he could make a serious movie, but it's like they're trying to capture that Venom kind of goofiness that I think they're like, oh, that works. People like that in Venom.
Well, no, I think it's more so that they're trying to capture the way humor is used in the MCU, because people seem to like those movies so much.
Yeah.
And they are, for the most part, very humor infused.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. They want to make the audiences joke. And like in a lot of ways, we don't have comedies anymore, but we have MCU movies that have just as many jokes, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
One other thing too, I know I'm kind of hogging this, but I'm always interested in the behind the scenes stuff. And the writers of this movie, they're a duo, and it's Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. And they made that Netflix Lost in Space show that I've always wanted to see that. I thought that looked pretty cool. But as far as movies go, they wrote Power Rangers 2017, which I'm actually a big fan of, and Gods of Egypt, which I think is kind of a dud, and then The Last Witch Hunter and Dracula Untold. So
I don't remember what Dracula Untold is.
That's the one with the guy that plays Gaston in the new Beauty and the Beast movie.
Who is Gaston?
He's Dracula, and then the guy who plays Preacher is like his enemy.
Huh. Okay.
It's like a Dracula Begins kind of movie, you know?
Okay.
And yeah. But anyway, like that's all kind of the same kind of quality of movie, and it's kind of making me think of what Morbius is going to be like when it comes out. You know, it's just sort of like it's a little cheesy, like kind of skirting on B movie, but still trying to be serious. You know?
Yeah. Is it coming out in February or March? Do you remember?
January 28th.
January. Wow. Okay, so I'm wrong. Yeah, I think I think I'm gonna go see this movie because I see all of them because I'm stupid. But
me too.
I don't have much interest outside of how this connects to Spider-Man, really. So a lot of my investment in this is going to be after I see No Way Home.
Okay. And No Way Home is when? It's December?
Right around Christmas.
Okay, yeah. I think it's like December 22nd.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So my last thing I want to say about this is that as far as this like Sony Spider-Man universe goes, the movies that are in that, I did like put this out on Twitter today because I thought that Into the Spider-Verse was part of it. And this one guy helped clarify. You made a funny joke about it, but the one guy said something along the lines of like, their rules are kind of different when it comes to animation, and that's why Spider-Man crosses over with people in animation. So Into the Spider-Verse is not considered part of this universe, but essentially Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and then another movie that they're working on. Do you know what the fourth movie is?
No.
Craven. They're making a Craven movie.
Is that like a fact, or is that still a rumor?
I think as far as I saw, it's like set to come out in January of 2023.
Wow. Okay. Is anyone attached to that at all?
I thought I saw that Jason Momoa was supposed to be Craven.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have not heard that yet. But just oh, man, what? I don't know why a Craven movie. Yes, I want to see Craven in a Spider-Man movie, but I don't want these movies without Spider-Man.
Yeah. It's like the whole supporting cast of Spider-Man. You know, like they make. Again. Oh, Jesus Christ! Am I here?
Yeah. You're there now. You said the whole supporting cast of Spider-Man,
but no Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when they make the fucking Alfred TV show for Batman. You know, like it's like a show about Alfred. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or you can even say Gotham too. It's like, oh, it's a show about Batman without Batman.
Right. And it's like they think that we're so obsessed with this stuff that we will just go see anything. And it's like you have to have these factors right for it to be entertaining to us. And I think they're just not getting that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So anyway, that is our discussion for Morbius, the trailer, and for Young Justice episode 4. If you guys are Young Justice fans, let us know what you thought about the last episode and what you think about the show in general. And Brian and I will be talking about Young Justice next week, episode 5. And I think before then, we'll be able to go see Eternals too, right?
Yes, the currently worst rated Marvel movie.
Yes. I'm not looking forward to that, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, until then, me and Brian will see you guys real soon.